So, hello to you, my dear, lovely listener. It's lovely to have you here with me on the Soul Sync. It's Jason Paul, as you know. Now, I wanted to record this episode, and you'll notice that there's been a distinct gap between the last episode and this episode. So what's been going on, firstly, in my new year? So I think, like us all, I went into the new year, obviously last year. Let's start with last year, first of all. What was I letting go of? So 2025 for me, it was just probably one of the hardest years ever. And that was funny because I said that at the end of 2024. So I thought when 2025 came around, I went in optimistically about 2025. That was the thing. But I had this sense that it was going to be a year of change. And it kept coming up on my tarot cards. I kept saying it to my mum, this is going to be a year of change. And it was. And obviously I lost my dad last year in October, at the end of October. And then had to navigate that. And obviously it's been very difficult for my family. So then we went into the Christmas period, and it was obviously different. It was different because my dad wasn't there and had to navigate that. So that was a period of change as well. But I spent the Christmas period just kind of really resting. And you will have noticed on the Soul Sync that I put out a lot of episodes in December, but that was because I actually had an extended period of time off. And what do I love doing? I love helping all of you lovely lot, I wanted to say. It's a very nice word to use, isn't it? All of you lovely people. And the Soul Sync's very dear and it's a big passion of mine because I feel like I'm learning with you, and I really, really am learning with you. So, last year was also very challenging with my business. It was I don't really talk a lot about my business on this podcast, but that's because I've always kind of kept a distinction, because how I came on to even start this podcast was off the back of stepping into mediumship. And I was always aware that a lot of what I was talking about on the podcast is about the spirit world. And the thing you must realise, my darling listeners, is my life away from the Soul Sync is being in the land of selling lawyers for a living. That's what I do. I do recruitment and I sell lawyers. And it's an industry of making deals, bringing people together. And actually, I use a lot of my psychic skills in doing this job. But for years and years and years, even when I was in the police and when I was cabin crew, and I was very sensitive kind of growing up. So I always had these, I would have called it gut feelings, but even sort of during my career, I've been using all of these skills for years, but I was a psychic and never even knew it. Well, there we go. Well, we're all a psychic, aren't we? We're all a psychic. So last year was very, very challenging, and I kind of went into this year, and this whole episode is about manifesting. And I think, like us all, I got to the end of last year and I thought, what do I want to let go of this year? And I wanted to let go of a number of different things that I felt weren't serving me. I wanted to let go of, the way I kind of view myself at times, speaking my kind of own truth, so kind of worrying less or not even caring at all about what people think about me. And these are all sort of things that I'm working through. And there's some things I want to manifest in my life, as we all do. And I think Kieran Morgan, when he came on and did the meditation for December, it was all about he made a point at the start of the meditation, actually, which was all about letting kind of go of what, you're leaving behind in the year, but also New Year's resolutions. And he was talking about, why do New Year's resolutions for most of us just not really stick? Because, we have this wishful thinking that we go into the new year that I'm not going to do this thing. And at the strike of 11:59, just before midnight, that's it. We're not going to do that anymore. And it's just not realistic. And as Kieran said, it's not really a period for change, that exact period of winter. And that was something that's just kept going round in my mind, as like a lot of these things do on the Soul Sync. And it made me think about what I want to manifest. So I wanted to record this manifest episode for you a lot earlier, actually. And the reason it's taken me a while to get going I'm doing you a manifest series, Soul Sync, my dears, on the 15th of January. So you've had time to think about what you want to manifest by now, more than likely. But it's taken me a while to actually really think about this, because I got first introduced, and I am a big law of attraction fan because you will have noticed at the very beginning of this podcast, if you go all the way back to the beginning, one of the things I did was the Magic's 30-day challenge. Now, when I first came across the law of attraction, I'm going to tell the backstory because it is really relevant, because I've manifested some bloody massive things in my life, including my business, which in a short amount of time, I managed to get to a multi-million pound turnover, all from just my savings, essentially. So I want to talk about different areas of manifesting and now what I believe it really takes, because I want to start to talk to you, my dears, at the Soul Sync much more this year, and stepping into my power to talk about my experiences to help you. So when I was 18 years old, actually I was about 19 years old, I was cabin crew for Virgin Atlantic, and actually, even before that, I manifested that job, and I really did, because I walked into, at 18 years old, the best company for me ever. And I knew that's where I wanted to be when I was younger, when I flew with them, when I was a child on my way to Orlando. And I looked at the cabin crew and I just thought, oh my goodness, this is your job, to go to Orlando, for 2 days or whatever. So I was working in a restaurant. I'd left school. School wasn't really for me, to be quite honest with you, because my ADHD brain, and I now look back, and I was having this conversation with someone just the other day. I used to think I was so cleverer than the teachers at school, not in an arrogant way, but I would sort of have this soul feeling that I was so much wiser, and it was almost like I was wise beyond my years. Don't get me wrong, I used to do stupid things, but being an ADHD person and seeing the world differently and sensing it differently, trying to fit into this mold of doing exams, and I'm an abstract thinker. So when I went through school, my latter school years in secondary school were difficult, because I went to one of the bottom 3 secondary schools. I didn't know that at the time. I probably had the suspicion because it was bloody awful, but I only found that out years later when the BBC found it out, when they were interviewing me for something to do with my job. I think it was GCSE results day, and they got me on to talk to the people who hadn't got good GCSEs, because I left school with barely any GCSEs. And the backstory behind it was, now I advise lawyers and very qualified people and whatever, and they found out that my school, was just closed down a couple of years after, because it was in the bottom 3 secondary schools. So that's how I kind of found that out. So I left school, then worked in a restaurant, did magic as well. I was performing magic at the time. So I was thinking, I've got my story, honestly, it could be like a best-selling book, and I could talk all day about it. But I was performing magic, but I was also working in a restaurant, washing up the dishes and stuff like that. So I couldn't wait to apply for Virgin when I found out they were recruiting for cabin crew. And I applied, and I literally manifested that job. I really did. And because I was seeing and feeling it, I was picturing myself, my imagination, wearing the uniform. I was projecting every night. Oh, imagine if I got that. I was seeing myself. I was feeling myself in that job. And that really goes to the heart of manifesting. But when I first came across the concept of the law of attraction, I was on a Virgin flight. So I'd been in my cabin crew job now for, how long had I been? About a year into it. And I was doing New Yorks, and I used to do lots of New Yorks because we used to fly there 7 days a week. And we was on the plane, and you'd always get a bit of spare time in the plane. Not as much on a New York, because it'd be quite a busy service. And it's quite a short flight to New York. Well, I say that, compared to a lot of Virgin flights, it was actually the shortest one. But another cabin crew girl, and you'd meet different crew on every flight. So it'd be very rare that you'd sort of be with the same person week in, week out. So there was one particular girl, and she was reading a book, and I said, what is that strange looking book? And she said, oh, it's The Secret. And as soon as I got to downtown New York, I was determined to find a copy of this book, and I really bought into it. But I think that was really good, because for years, I was trying to practice the law of attraction, but I realise now what it actually really is and what it actually really involves. And even my view on it now is significantly different to the very beginning of the Soul Sync. because I've been on this own journey whilst running the Soul Sync on the amount of time it's been on, I've actually manifested some things very well, but there's some things that I really struggled to manifest that I have manifested previously. So my view on it has really changed. And what I want to do in this series, and it's going to be kind of like a mini series, and I'm going to be manifesting with you because, well, firstly, I've been single now for many years, and I would love to manifest a lovely, nice partner. And, well, it just isn't happening. And I kind of know why it's not happening, because I feel like I have some kind of block that's stopping me from manifesting. So that's something we can live out together. Manifesting a nice man, that'd be lovely, Soul Sync. And I want to talk to you about these key areas of career, for instance, and, what I think stops people from reaching their full potential. The beautiful thing here, Soul Sync, is if I actually step fully into my power here to help you a minute, is I advise people on their careers every single day, top drawer lawyers on their careers. And, there's so much I could say on that. And I want to help you so much. As much as I want to talk about mediumship as well, I also want to help you with your journey. So there's a lot I want to say, even in the fact that, I left school with no GCSEs or anything to really academically. And, I've gone on to do very well in my career. But what do I believe my superpower is in my career? I believe I think it's communication it boils down to, but it's also really high levels of emotional intelligence because it's all to do with people. But, I'm going to start with the beginning here on manifesting. I'm jumping all over the place here, Soul Sync, but that is the thing. We go down rabbit holes. So what do I believe manifesting is? Right, the first thing I'm going to say about the law of attraction is what it says is it's all about feeling gratitude. Yes, gratitude is very important. You have to appreciate what you already have, and I do believe that. But to actually manifest what you want, it is a frequency and it is a state and it is a feeling. And there is a difference between wishful thinking and hoping the universe is just going to deliver you this thing into your life. And I've been doing that myself at times because I would say, I'm visualizing this and I'm manifesting this, and my behaviors wouldn't align even with what I'm trying to manifest. So even though the law of attraction, sort of the Rhonda Byrne version, is as successful as it is, I do think it is a bit corny, but it does carry some truth. For instance, it says in that book that if you want to manifest a partner, if your wardrobe is absolutely overloaded and there's no room in your life for a partner, you are not going to manifest a partner, which is exactly right. But I feel that to manifest successfully, you have to have a system, firstly, because that is essential. Because most of the time when we're trying to manifest something, we're trying to change an area of our life, which involves change and it involves doing things differently. So if you want to manifest, I think the first thing you have to look at is, are your actions in alignment? Like, you could say, for instance, right, I want to go and get the best job that I can possibly get. But if you haven't even got an up-to-date CV, you're not even putting yourself in the right places and opportunities, and you're expecting the universe to just deliver you a job offer into your mailbox. I would love that. It's like me with relationships. I'm just expecting the law of attraction to have the perfect man just literally break down outside my door, knock for a cup of tea or something, and that will happen. No, Jason, your actions have to align with that as well. So you've got to have a system. And I know myself, when I try and manifest things, and I'm going to use money as an example here, and I'm going to talk about money in more detail. And I've manifested, vast amounts of money in my time, but I've also lost vast amounts of money in my time as quick as I've earned it, not by spending it, by losing it. Because what I have done at points in my career is replace what was bringing that funds in and allowing my business to scale, would then put in overheads up. And then what happened is, I feel in my mind at times, my vision was clouded because, it all got too much and I started worrying. And as I was worrying and trying to control things, it was almost like the situation was getting worse. So I wasn't manifesting, but I understand now why that was. And that was because of the fact that I wasn't feeling in that state of alignment. I was worrying at the time I was manifesting. had this vision, I had this drive. I came in feeling it in that state. So I think that to manifest, it's about a feeling. So, if, for instance, you want to manifest a partner, but you never feel that someone is ever going to come into your life. So you are carrying that frequency of it's not going to happen. So you're trying to manifest, but at the very beginning, you're not even believing it, that it's even possible. Or you might have a limiting belief within you that actually, if you're trying to manifest a partner, but you don't feel kind of worthy of that love, or you don't feel that you're worthy of that person coming into your life, then that's a limiting belief that because you're carrying that frequency that you don't, and it happens with money all the time. People want to, if I said to you, right, what do you want to manifest? I want to manifest, let's say, well, the first thing you would do if I said to you to write down now on a piece of paper, what do you want to be in your bank account at the end of this year? Everyone will stop and they will not write down the real figure they really want to manifest. What you will do is you will write down what you believe is kind of reasonable and achievable, and it has to go through a lens, almost like a limiting lens normally that we put on ourselves. We wouldn't be able to manifest this amount, that's too much, that wouldn't happen to me, how would it happen? But your job isn't to worry about the how, my dear listener. Your job is just to put it out there and feel in that state, which is why I also think that the exercise of sitting and imagining different scenarios in your imagination about the life you want. So, for instance, if you want a certain house, to sort of sit there and just imagine walking into that house and just sort of running your hand along the banister and just going in and smelling the kind of fresh pine of that beautiful piece of furniture that you got in your kitchen. Oh God, that feels good. And that state of just doing that once a day, even for 10 minutes on one particular area in the morning and at night, is so powerful, because manifesting is about how you feel. It's an alignment of a feeling. So that's an interesting topic, isn't it? So what I'm going to be doing in these next few episodes is, because of the fact that I could jump all over the place, and I want to keep this specific to you and talk about my experiences in the areas of relationships, in the areas of money, career especially. I can say so much on that about being and knowing your potential. And we're also going to touch on, what was that? Relationships, I said, and career, money, and any other areas that come to me. So that's going to be interesting, and that's what we're going to talk about. Also, what's going on with me at the moment, I've got a massive court case coming up in a few weeks' time, which is another reason why I haven't recorded a solo episode. Part of the reason was because I had I think we call it like a writer's block. I wanted to talk about manifesting, but it actually took me a while to think about what do I want to manifest. And even my views since thinking about this episode have changed in terms of what I feel is my concept of how to manifest. So we are going to go into detail in these particular segments. But yes, I've got a trial coming up, which is going to be very hard because it relates back to a really troubling time in my life, which I'm going to talk about on this podcast. It was a time in my life when I was in the police, but it's not something I can talk about right now, but that's what's taking up a lot of my time. Also, there's some really interesting episodes, actually. Another thing that's been taking up my time is recording guest episodes. So stick with me on this manifesting series, my dear listener. And it's so lovely to have you here. And I honestly hope the start of your year is going well.